Goblin Man, does whatever a scientist can. Throws a bomb, Aunt May dies. Anything so the Spidey cries, look out, here comes the Goblin Man.
Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display and happy President's Day. Today we are going to be reviewing a figure that I'm a little bit late to the party on. He's been out for a few months now. There's some other reviews out there, but hell, I got him and I mean it's freaking Willem Dafoe. So we have to have a look at this figure. It's of course the Green Goblin as he was seen in Spider-Man No Way Home. A very long-awaited character for the Marvel Legends catalog, as done by Hasbro. There are a few little things that I got problems with, but nothing so big that really hurts the experience of this figure. We'll get to that when we get to that. But overall, it's a really excellent pack. I mean, you really can't call this a single figure, especially when it comes with this big-ass glider over here. We've seen some gliders done in the past. We've seen some goblins in the past from Marvel Legends, but never before at this big of a scale. This is a pretty unique experience. So without further ado, there's no box here to look at today. I'm sorry about that. So that just means we get to go into the figure a little bit early, so what's wrong with that? So here is everyone's favorite green baddie as he appeared out of the packaging, and he looks absolutely fantastic. It's very hard to say where to begin because there's so many details throughout him. Of course, not only do we have a classic Sam Raimi design from back in the 2000s, but we have on top of him a whole lot of extra kibble to MCUify him up, if that makes any sense, because of course this is the second time we are seeing Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. Now he appears a little bit different, but that's not to say he isn't the same evil scientist underneath the hood. This head sculpt is extremely modular, but when you first open him out of the green packaging, he comes with a really awesome purple hood, the head sculpt, and also these goggles, which are all very well done pieces. It's a very good set. When you look at the goggles a little more closely, you can see that they're molded in a black, but the lenses are actually done in a purple, which is something I definitely missed in the film, so that's really awesome to see. As for the hood itself, I actually really like the execution. I don't feel like it's too big. I like how the hair is able to poke out without looking like it's pushing the hood up too much, like you'd expect for earlier Marvel Legends. It would look something like that, but nope, there's enough room up there where you can go ahead and nestle it down, and it looks pretty natural. That also goes down here to this rest of the hoodie. I'm not totally sure what happened here. If he was in an explosion himself and his hoodie got torn up, then just leaving him with the hood and what's left down here, I really don't know, but whatever, it looks really cool. A lot of superhero/supervillain designs make no sense, but as long as they look good, I mean, who's to be any the wiser? So I'm very happy with this. I think the execution is very well done, in spite of it not being in soft goods, but in this case, I think this is a case where solid plastic actually does the better job. Going on down, we have, of course, the titular green going on throughout the suit. And as I said before, it is the classic Sam Raimi Green Goblin, but with a whole bunch of extra little parts stuck onto him. So, yeah, you got the usual green on the torso, which is a little bit blanketed over by the hoodie. But you can also make out that there's a whole bunch of straps, belts, buckles, pouches, things of that nature. I don't know what everything here is. I mean, I don't know, what are these, some magazines or something like that? I'm really not totally sure. Got some more belts around the back. It'd been nice if they went the extra mile and painted in some silver at the buckles or something like that, but, I mean, nothing that a customizer's touch can't fix, so not a big deal. Going on to the arms, this is where I get a little bit confused, although it's not to say it's not a good detail. It's a very nice detail, but I get a little confused where we have some battle damage on the suit, which I think is fantastic, and it's supposed to imply that part of the green has blown off to reveal some purple on the inside, if you can make that out right there. So that confuses me a little bit. I guess you have the green outside, then you got a purple interior. I'm not totally sure what that's meant to represent, but it's nice to have a little bit more of that purple motif going on throughout the figure instead of just being constricted to the glider and the hood. So that's a neat little detail. I guess he also went out of his way to add some extra padding because now we have this big purple siding on his bicep over there. Going on down to each arm, they're a little bit varied. Over here, we have 3 missiles, I guess. I'm not totally sure what everything here is. And then we have his really awesome blade coming out of his forearm there. Unfortunately, it is permanent. You can't pop that out, which I was kind of wishing it would. It's totally locked in there. Like if I go and pull on it, Nothing's going to happen. They're a little bit flimsy, so you're going to want to be careful with that. But regardless, it's pretty nice. I mean, it could be a little shinier, but as it comes, it's pretty good. Also got a fisted hand over here. He does not have interchangeable hands. I think that really would have pushed him above and beyond. But still, I mean, fist isn't too bad. I mean, it goes with the bladed arm, so not a big deal there. Off to this arm now, we have 3 pouches, their purpose of which will be forever be ambiguous. It just looks cool. Extra little rag over here, I guess to tie some of his broken armor together. Down here, 2 more things. Looks kind of like something Boba Fett would be wearing. I really don't know what it is, but it's there, and it looks cool. Then down here we have this open hand, and I did want to talk about this quick for a second, because we're having an early look at one of the accessories. Here we have the pumpkin bomb. He only comes with 1, and it's sculpted very nicely, although I kind of wish that the paint apps was a little bit more aligned with the sculpt work. You can see that it's a little bit off. It's a nice piece and all. It pops into his hand and locks in there very well, but the issue is if you want him to have an open hand like he's trying to balance on his glider, that's where you're going to have a problem, because the bomb is very difficult to take out. So I'm actually going to spare you the embarrassment of watching me try and get it back out, but I did get it out before, and pretty much what you have to do is peel back the fingers, and eventually it kind of just tumbles on out, but it's very difficult to do. It's a very stiff plastic that makes up the hands, so that's a little bit irritating. Going on down, you got the green crotch bit over there, no purple or anything to speak of. I have a little bit of silver kibble back here on his behind, so that's really nice. You also have some more armor plating on his thighs with a little bit of purple, and also an almost mustard yellow, I want to say. I feel like it was more gold in the film. I'd have to rewatch it, but it still looks really good. And again, you could repaint that. Not a big deal. Kneecaps, a little bit more of that gunmetal silver, looking really sweet. I really like that a lot. I also like how it kind of goes over that almost meshy looking pattern that the kneecap has, and then you have the plating over it just to give it a little bit more variation. Then going on down to the calves, got more of that same motif with the purple and the yellow and the silver. And then down to the feet, actually this is one of the better examples of where you could see the peeled away green armor revealing the purple. We got that right here. And I think that is a little bit better applied than it is up here at the shoulder we looked at. You can see the paint's a little bit off, but down here it's plugged right in where it needs to be. So I like that a lot more. Gives you a little bit more of a sense of the anatomy of the suit and the different types of layers that go into it. So that's pretty neat. And that's about it for the basic aesthetics of this particular figure. So we kind of already had a look at one accessory being the bomb, but let's go ahead straight into accessories with the head sculpt. So I'm going to go ahead and pop his head sculpt off. Here's what it looks like out of the packaging, but there is a lot of modularity when it comes to this head and what you can do with it. Of course, you could take the hood away, and then you could just have the head with the goggles on it if you want. I don't think he ever looked like that, but you can go ahead and pop the goggles off, and that's where we have Willem Dafoe just looking absolutely sinister and creepy looking as he does best, and it's fantastic. This honestly makes a figure for me. The photoreal also isn't too shiny or anything. There's a little shine to it, but you can attribute that to just being a little bit of sweat, and it's not so bad. The hair is sculpted just right, just as it did in the 2000s. I think that is perfectly done. It's got some ears, going into the eyes a little bit more closely. You can make out some blue eyes, got some teeth, got a little bit of stubble going around there. And yeah, it looks fantastic, especially when compared to one of the imports. I forget which it was. It was either Mafex or SH Figuarts where they did a head sculpt, and it was just a neutral expression, which is not an expression you want for a Green Goblin. You want him to look a little bit more erratic and nutso, and I think this is a very good mean between extremes. I think they hit the nail on the head just right over here. But let's say you don't want any of these and you're more of a Raimi kid than anything else, then you also have the classic 2000s Green Goblin helmet or mask or whatever you want to call it, and it looks really fantastic, just as it did straight out of either of the two films. There is a little bit of marbling going on with the green up here. As you can see, there's that streak kind of coming on down over here, but for me, I actually don't mind it because it looks like it's cracked. I mean, there was one point in the movie where he tried smashing his helmet and it exploded in a whole bunch of shards. So, I don't know, this kind of adds to the look of the helmet a little bit. It looks like it's got some weathering to it. So, for me, this is almost like a legacy helmet. There was no point in the film where, might as well just go ahead and pop this on, which is no problem. There was no point in the movie where his armor was at this state with all the extra little plates on it while he was wearing this helmet. But for me, this is like a good legacy appearance of him. Like, if you love the classic films of years of old, but you also like the new films that are coming out, then if you put these two together, this suit, then this helmet, it's a pretty good look altogether. In fact, I kind of prefer the helmet, that's just me, but it's not to say this isn't a good head sculpt with the unmasked over here, because that's also very nice. But there's a lot of great options. No matter how you picture the Green Goblin, you could do whatever you want with this particular version, and he's really excellent. Really love him a lot. Now, of course, the next thing we're going to have to look at is a glider. I'm not totally sure how we're going to do this, but it is a very excellent piece. Not quite perfect. Like, you could see when it's sitting down, this side pops up a little bit more than this side over here, so it feels a little bit awkward, but it's still very neat. Although they did a fine amount of nuances here that make this all the better. Like, you could see under this vent, might be better if I put it upside down, there is some of that green emissive light coming through. It's hard to see. Maybe if I tilt up the camera. There you go. You can see there's all these green bits on the underside, which look very good. They kind of get caught in the shadow when you have it upright, but it's so nice that they paid that attention to detail. Flipping it on up, you can see all the purples and silvers going on, and I think they look absolutely fantastic. Out of the packaging, these little foot pads, or whatever you want to call them, are removed. All you have to do is plug them back in. They're not identical. You can see that there's this little corner that's taken out that kind of helps you to gauge which foot you put on which side, so that's really nice. Round to the back, got some thrusters, looking really cool. Got some rockets on either side, 6 total. And you also have this plastic glider stand, which you've seen on a whole bunch of occasions, not just with Marvel Legends, but also with Star Wars The Black Series. Basically, you have 3 separate ball joints. You can choose which one you want, depending on which height you want the glider to be at. I currently have it in the tallest configuration possible, and then I can go ahead, so let's set it on down, and then you can also go ahead and tilt it whichever way you want. Once you have the figure actually on there, then it's going to be a matter of finding the center point of balance, which could be a little bit dicey. But with the glider on its own, which is totally okay, I mean, it's controlled by AI and everything, yeah, you can have it as kind of its own separate character if you really wanted it to. So you can have the glider flying around, well, or not, have that off to the side. Then you can have Goblin standing right next to it, and it looks like you got 2 characters almost. There's also a little bit of movement within the glider itself, although you don't really need much of it, but it's there if you need it. You do have a swivel and a little bit of tilting action. Ooh, I heard a little crack. Everything okay? Alright, everything's okay. No idea what happened there. I guess I just never moved that before, but you have a little bit of tilting out for this foot piece over here. Same can be said over here on the right. And also the glider, it kind of opens up like that. Maybe that's what the glider looks like when it's idle. I'm not totally sure, but I don't know. Maybe that's just how it would work best when they were putting this glider together. Just have some joints in there so everything would fit. But yeah, those are all the moving parts, and then you got the ball joints and everything. So yeah, really excellent glider. And to do a little bit of a glider comparison, they of course did a Raimi Green Goblin years ago when the original films were being released, and that is kind of what I was using as my original Green Goblin. So here's that glider from way back. And if you go ahead and pan way out, because both of these are quite big, you can notice the size difference. The original one was much smaller. This one is customized, by the way. I have some custom pumpkin bumps in there with some glow-in-the-dark paint there, so I got a little bit crafty with this glider, so ignore all the mods I did. But you can see the noticeable differences. The original one was a lot more on the shiny side. As for the new one, not as shiny. Doesn't really have those etched-in patterns, which I outlined with Gundam marker to bring them out a little bit more, but regardless, they don't translate over to here. Not a huge deal. I mean, they still have a little bit of texturing in there to give it almost like this carbon fiber look, which I think is pretty nice. But yeah, definitely from 2 different eras of Marvel Legends, but I mean, obviously this one is the most superior of the 2, in my opinion. I mean, just in terms of the sheer scale, the detail work, it's got the greens in there and everything. I don't feel like there's anything new that you need to do with this particular glider, so And also the stand's a lot better. The stand for this one, I no longer have it, but it was kind of just this disc with a pin coming up, and that would plug right on top of that, and that no longer exists. In fact, I think I broke the original stand that I custom did for this, so that's a whole other story. We're not going to get into that, but as for this new stand, very good. I like it quite a lot. As for the articulation on the actual Goblin, as on the head, it might vary a little bit depending on which head you're working with. With the helmet on, you do have your tilt, got forward, good amount back, and it swivels. Go ahead and pop that off and get Willem Dafoe from off to the side here. Of course, this will vary when he has the hood on, but get a little more forward, back are pretty much about the same amount. Also have your tilt, got an exorcist swivel. As for the arms, there's no butterflies, I don't think. No, there are not. That's okay, because he could still go past 90, going up, which is really good. As you just saw, he's got a bicep swivel in there. Oh, everything's kind of moving together. Let's fix that. Yeah, pin that down. Got the bicep swivel. Pinless double-jointed elbows, which look absolutely beautiful, coming all the way up. As for the wrists, they both swivel. It's a little tight, but it's there. This hand hinges in and out. Again, very stiff. Could use a little hot water, probably. As for this one, also in and out. Moves a little bit better, though. And the pumpkin bomb, obviously, isn't going to stop the articulation whatsoever. Torso gets a little dicey because you have all the belts and the hoodie kind of crowding around the joint, but there is a ball joint in there. It goes that much forward, good amount back, got some tilt, swivel, and the belts kind of pull around in different directions as you do it, but it doesn't hinder him much at all. I mean, he goes to swivel 90 degrees that way and this way, and everything kind of just pulls with it. So nothing's glued down, everything's floating. So I really appreciate that. As for the legs, I found this detail really interesting. It seems like there's a little bit of a drop down right there. So I imagine that would be most useful for when you're posing him up on the glider, which we will do in a few moments here. But that'll allow him to kick very much forward. I don't know if he could actually do that in the real suit, but that's a really great thing to have. As for back, not a whole ton, because he's got the really solid goblin butt in the back. As for knees, double jointed, up to there. I forgot to mention there's also a thigh swivel, hidden very seamlessly in both legs, looking really excellent. Down to the ankles. Now this is a part where I do have a little bit of a complaint. There's no swivel in there, and it's got that much forward, not a whole lot, that much back, there we go, then a tad forward, and it's got some rocker, but it's not that great when we're actually posing them up on the glider. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and give that a shot. Let's start over here with the righty. There we are. Then we got lefty over here. Port that one on. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it's there. And then gotta pose the base a little bit to again counter the weight of the new figure that we got on top of it. And yeah, looks pretty good right there. So let's go push on in. You can kind of see how everything lines up. Doesn't look too bad. I mean, you can see that the ankles feel a little awkward when you really stare at them, but ultimately, it's not too terrible. I just wish that they could have thought around a little bit more articulation in the feet, so it would be a little bit less of a hassle getting them on, but not that difficult. Gets there. You can't get him, like, crouching all the way down with a hand over here, which I wish you could do, but that's not in the cards, but you could still do plenty with what you've got. And, yeah, it's a great looking piece. Love these two together quite a bit. Here's Green Goblin once again with the figures from the Spider-Man No Way Home 3-pack from Hasbro Pulse. And over here we have Peter 1, Peter 2, and Peter 3. And I think overall, they're pretty well scaled. I mean, I'm not one to know, like, the specific heights of all the actors and everything, but it seems right. I mean, you got Tom Holland being on the shorter side. Then you've got Green Goblin seeming a little bit tall compared to the Tobey Maguire. I guess that would make sense. I mean, he's on the older side, and he's also bulked up with the armor and everything, so I guess that makes sense. And then you have Andrew Garfield, who's a little bit more level with the Goblin, so I'm not totally sure, but it works for me. None of these heights differences irritate me at all. Everything seems to be correct, so yeah, there you go. The last comparison I wanted to do is with one of the original Green Goblins from when the first Spider-Man movie was released. This guy is modded to death. I don't even know where to begin with it. I mean, he's got a wash. I modified some of the joints. I made it so he could hold some of the pumpkin bombs with some picks in the hands. There's just a lot going on here. He also used to have a removable mask, but the face was so bad I just glued the helmet on. It was that repulsive. But you could see here, just based on a scaling perspective, he is definitely a lot bigger and bulkier on the new one. It's like giving eyes to a blind man for me. You can definitely see a difference in the proportions. Over here, way too thin. Over here, he's a little bit wider as he should be. Then on top of that, quite literally, you have more of that MCU armor going on. So that's what makes this figure absolutely superior to any of the older ones that you could get. Still, would be if they got licensing privileges in order to actually make a modern version of the original Goblin. But time will tell. Maybe we'll get that. We'll see. But of course, lastly, as all size comparisons must end, we have the Star Wars The Black Series, Mechamuck!
Holy crap, it's William Dafoe! Listen, I'm really tired of all the spider people here. I can one-up you and be a part of your Sinister Six. I mean, I'm a quacking monkey lizard. That's enough, right?
Oh, shut up and get on!
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older? Then we wouldn't have to witch the...
And that is about all for this Spider-Man No Way Home Green Goblin. Overall, I think it is really fantastic, although not without its problems. There are a few missing paint apps, like a few little bald spots here and there on the main figure. The glider itself, it could have a few more extra details, like some of the etching like they had in the original glider, but I mean, with the new size that it's at, and with the more modern stand below it, that makes things a little bit better, and allows me to ignore the problems a little more. You also have the green highlights in there that make it a little bit more excellent. You also have the extra purple kibble on the main Goblin himself, the many different head sculpt options that you have, whether it be unmasked or masked, like over here. It's just great to have so many different choices. Overall, I think this figure is a home run. It's a really excellent buy. I do think it's worth the money. Of course, they could have sweetened the pot a little bit more with maybe some more pumpkin bombs, some extra hands. Definitely if they would have done a little bit more ankle articulation. But overall, I think it's a very excellent package. I think he's got most of what he needs. It's a lot of fun to screw around with, see what you can do with it. And yeah, just to experiment with this figure is a pleasure in and of itself. And then once you get him in the right posing options that you like, you get him alongside the other Spider-Man villains from the Rogues Gallery and everything. I mean, this guy's just a really good centerpiece. So yeah, highly recommend him. Go ahead and grab him. I mean, he's not in short supply, he's not an exclusive or anything, so he should be no problem to obtain. So go after him. I think you'll be thrilled. So all that being said, thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals, and subscribe. This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.